Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Lance Edwards. Thanks for being on the show, Lance.
Well, Whitney, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really get a lot of your podcast. You're doing a great job. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I know the value that you're going to provide to the listeners. And Lance is the author of the best-selling book, How to Make Big Money in Small Apartments. His company, First Cornerstone Group, LLC, is a real estate education and marketing company. Lance, why don't you give the listeners a little more about your background, what you're up to right now?
Well, thank you so much. I got started a number of years ago, back 2002. I guess you were still in grade school at the time, but I had a full-time corporate job working 60 hours a week, discovered real estate on the side, looking to make some extra money. My very first training was how to buy houses, nothing down. And the most important thing I learned in that course on houses was this. My instructor said, Lance, I made a lot of money doing houses, but I came to realize that to meet my financial goals, I needed to shift to multifamily. Multifamily provided bigger numbers in a shorter time period. And that made all the sense in the world to me. So when I came out of my very first training on houses, I decided to get started in small apartments. Very first deal I ever did, Whitney, I bought a fourplex, nothing down. It was my first deal. It was also the scariest deal of my life because it was all new. And as you know, we're not taught this stuff in school. And from that critical first deal, which I tell people is the most critical one, was the first one. Of the next 2.5 years, I did 50 deals, apartment buildings with more fourplexes and 10, 50, 56, 85 unit projects, all using OPM, other people's money. And within 3 years of my start in apartments, I was able to retire from my 20-year career job, going out doing apartments full time. A couple years into that, about 2007, I got approached by some colleagues that said, "Can you come teach us how you're doing this?" Had my very first seminar in 2007. Since then, on the training side of my business, I've taught tens of thousands of students how to create their financial independence with small apartments. And on the transaction side, the business is very active. I've done deals from 3 units to nearly 300 unit deals, and so that has become my passion: training and doing the transactions. Many times we do these deals with our students.
Nice. Well, obviously, you've got so much experience. I know you can definitely help the listeners and helping them get started in this business. So, you started back in 2002, and you went from that fourplex, and you said in 2.5 years you did over 50 deals. What gave you the confidence so quickly to be able to say, okay, just jump in both feet and make that many deals happen?
That's a great question. And the key word here is confidence. And it comes down to that first deal. And I believe it's the most critical one. It's the scariest one because, again, it's just we have not been taught this stuff in school. And we have to learn it elsewhere. And for me, when I got the first deal done, and this has been my experience every time I've interviewed one of my successful students, like a nanosecond after closing that first deal, my brain says, "Hey, this stuff works and it works for you. Let's do bigger deals." And it grows from there. And so I say, that's why I talk about small apartments, just a place to start. It's just, I don't care, you make $100 flipping a duplex, but get it under your belt because your confidence just like naturally explodes from there.
What's probably the biggest excuse that you hear from students and all these people that you've coached, of just why they can't get started?
Oh, number one, here's top of the list. Number one, well, I can't afford to do that. I don't have the financial means. I don't have the cash. I don't have the credit. That's the number one, I call it myth or limiting belief. And it's easy to understand. We've been taught these conventional ways of buying houses or real estate. But the fact of the matter is you don't need to use your own financial resources. The biggest deals are done not using your own financial resources. I mean, you're with everything you teach and preach on your podcast, that. And so, but still, it's so ingrained with people. I have to educate them on here are all the ways you can do these deals using other people's money. The main thing is go create some deal flow. that's the job. You go create the deal flow. Money's not the issue.
Nice. Could you help the listener, maybe get started? Give us a few pointers, and the ones that have that thought right now, or that excuse, that number one excuse that I don't have the cash or the means, I can't get started in this business without it. Lay out a little bit of a plan for us to get started.
That's great. Certainly, I will. Let's talk about this top limiting belief. I don't have the financial means to do this. Well, I'm going to tell you. In the book, I talk about there's many ways to talk about getting the money. I'm going to give you the top two for small apartments, and this will help make the point. Matter of fact, these are how I got my business started for the first 5 years. Is all I did. And there's the two top sources of private money for you on a small apartment deal. Number one, seller financing. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And number two, a single private investor, most likely a self-directed IRA investor. But number one, seller financing. This is where we ask the seller to be the bank. And instead of getting all their money up front, they're going to carry monthly payments from us. Matter of fact, my very first deal, the lady's name was Ms. Manson. She did 100% seller financing. And I didn't, no cash, and she did 100% seller financing. So she just took monthly payments. Never asked for a credit check, never asked for a financial statement, which is the norm in seller financing. But let's say you have someone that agrees to doing seller financing, but they want 20% down. Where's that 20% down going to come from? Well, you go to find a private investor. And in small apartments, the number one private investing source outside of the seller is people with a self-directed IRA. They've got $50,000 or $100,000 in their IRA. It's self-directed. That means they can loan their IRA money to you and do a real estate transaction, and you pay back their IRA. And that 1-2 combination, seller financing for the bulk of it, and then whatever down payment you need or rehab money, go get it from a self-directed IRA investor. And here's the beauty of it. When it comes to small apartments, you only need one investor to get started. You don't need a lot of cash, just one investor. And then from there, it kind of becomes a wellspring of funding sources for you. So that is what I would share is my very quick and dirty version of it, Whitney, of how to quickly get beyond this whole notion you need to have a lot of cash or credit.
So that first seller who did 100% financing, how did you convince her, with no experience in real estate, how did you convince her that she could do that for you and her investment was safe here?
It's of course it was my first one, so there's a lot of didn't know any better, so I just was asking for this stuff, which is good. And so when I was talking to her, Ms. Manson, I said, well, Ms. Manson, let me ask you, why are you considering selling your fourplex? She said, well, I bought this fourplex 2 years ago, and I just want to get a monthly check. And I don't want to talk to that management company, and I don't want to read their reports, and I don't have to approve this and approve that. And so I'm just going to sell it. I said, well, I can understand that, Ms. Manson. I said, how about this? How about you sell me your building, I'll send you a monthly check, and you'll never talk to me again in life. How would that be? She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you sell me your fourplex, I'll send you a monthly mortgage payment. I'll be the new owner. I'll deal with the management company. You just get a monthly check. How would that be? She said, is that legal? I said, yes, ma'am, that's perfectly legal. But in that conversation, she never, I gave her no down payment. She never asked for a down payment. All she wanted to do was get a monthly check. And so I would say, the secret to getting seller financing is two things. Number one, first of all, you have to ask. You have to ask for it. And we always ask for it, always. And then the second thing is we show the seller, when we make an offer, a written offer to a seller, we show them in that offer. And by the way, we give them 3 options with every offer, 2 for seller financing, 1 for cash. But I show them how much more money they will make with seller financing because they're getting interest built into it. And through a combination of asking for seller financing and appealing to their human greed gland, they see them to make more money. That's how we get people interested in actually doing seller financing transactions. And then after that, we show them how they have a mortgage and they'll be protected in the event of default. But we appeal to their greed gland, and is the simplest way to answer how we do it.
So I know a big focus obviously for you is the small apartments. So tell me, has that been your focus, throughout your real estate career, is the small apartments? And if not, what are you doing now, and how do you guide students?
So I've done, like I said, I've done from 3, actually duplex. Duplex is all the way up to nearly 300 unit transactions. So I've done the whole small, mid-size, and large gamut. My training business is focused on small apartments for people getting started. And we have complete training programs. We have done-for-you services. We're very, very, deep into that niche. But what I tell people is I want you to start small, but you don't have to stay small, because, and you know this, when everything we teach on how to do a small apartment is the same as mid-size and large. It's just math with extra zeros. And so I want to get people started small, and so they can scale up. And that's the sequence. It's a sequence I went through. And so now our training business is very, very active. It's in Houston, and my whole team running that. Matter of fact, I'm very proud to report we're one of the fastest growing companies 3 years in a row by Inc. Magazine on the training side of the business. And so, that keeps that team very occupied. And my focus is over here buying boring apartment buildings, big ones. I was sharing with you, we're doing a syndication. We're doing a $10 million raise ourselves to go out and buy it, because we eat our own cooking over here. But I teach people to get started small so they can scale up.
Yeah, get their feet wet, get their confidence built up, and learn the industry, and then the sky's the limit.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is, once whatever size you start with is totally scalable. It's just the same math. It's just adding zeros onto it. It's the same thing. Matter of fact, I could argue it gets easier as you get bigger, get more economies of scale.
What are some of the biggest problems that you see new people face as they're getting into the industry? Besides that top excuse, what are, say they're getting into that first deal. What are some of the problems that you see that are the most common?
Lack of focus. One of the key questions, somebody getting started is, what do I focus on? And it's easy when you're entering into something new, especially if it's your first time in entrepreneurship and you've been an employee like I was for 20 years, and you're entering entrepreneurship, and there's no rule book they hand you. As an employee, I had a manual. I knew what I needed to do every day when I showed up. You step out here in entrepreneurship, and there's all these things. And of course, everybody's throwing different things at you, different topics. And so for me, it's guiding them on maintaining focus. And what I tell them is, after we've done all of our, we have our 3-day seminars, and I've taught them everything about the business. And I say, listen, when you leave here, there's one thing you got to focus on, just one thing. This is all you got to focus on, and that's deal flow. You got to create deal flow. You got to get your phone ringing. If there's all this that I've just taught you is academic, if you don't have potential deals coming across your desk. And so for anyone getting started, it's a maniacal focus on creating deal flow, because everything spawns off of that.
So how do you teach somebody that's new in the business to create that deal flow?
There's 3 ways that we teach: websites, brokers, and direct mail. Websites is, LoopNet, even in MLS when it comes to small apartments. Of course, I tell everybody now, you recognize this. Not every listing on LoopNet is going to be a good deal. Matter of fact, most of them are not. So you got to learn how to separate the trash from the treasure. A second source is brokers. This is where you develop relationships over the phone from brokers you find on LoopNet to go after their pocket listings. We have scripts for do that. You'll love this, Whitney. I used to brag in the past. I had an 18-year-old student that took our scripts, and he went out and found a deal, and he and his dad flipped it, made $30,000 on a 26-unit building. And I used to brag about the 18-year-old until I had a 12-year-old show up in my seminars. He was calling brokers using the exact same script. And I actually did a video interview with him, and his name was Dylan. And I said, Dylan, weren't you nervous calling these brokers? You're only 12 years old. What's to be nervous about? You gave me a script. I read it. He can't come through that phone. And I said, well, I wish more people could think like you, Dylan, because that's a big fear, is getting on the phone. It's a real big fear. And so that's a second way to create deal flows through brokers. And we have scripts to help with that. A third way, and I think it's a secret weapon, is direct mail. Going straight to the owner. That's how I got my start. That's what I'm very active in today. That's what we do all over the country. We run campaigns for our students, because it puts me in direct contact with the owner. for a conversation around seller financing or a conversation about some preferred terms. I understand what they want to get out of it. And so, websites, brokers, and direct mail is by far my favorite.
Can you give us a couple pointers quickly on that script for the broker conversation?
Yeah. There's two key things with a broker. When we're calling up a broker for the first time, even if you have no experience, and the only thing the broker can judge us by is the quality of the questions we ask him or her and the tonality in our voice. They can't see our body language. They're not like now. We're not on video. They're just the words we use and the tonality of our voice. So the main question on the broker's mind is going to be, is this person a closer? Meaning, if I invest time working with this investor or this entrepreneur, will I ever see a commission at the end of this? Which is a reasonable question for them to be asking. So we have crafted it so you need to ask very good questions. And basically what you do is you go on LoopNet, find a listing of a kind of property you might be interested in. Let's say it's an eightplex. And you call the broker, but you're going to ask them very good questions about this listing. The quality of your questions that you ask them will communicate to them that you know what you're talking about because you're asking quality questions. But you're really driving at towards the end of the script or towards the end of your conversation, you want to tell them, well, let me tell you the kind of properties I'm looking for. Do you have any others like these? And then you very precisely explain the kind of property you're looking for because you're going after their pocket listing, the properties they did not put on LoopNet. And if you've done two things, if you've asked quality questions to position yourself as knowledgeable, and if you explain to that broker in very precise language the kind of deal you're looking for, they can picture it in their mind and they will give you other listings. I've done this on stage for years, and live audiences, get on the phone, I call brokers, they bring me listings off of LoopNet and I call them. And I will tell you this, not once has a broker ever asked me for a proof of funds, which I know some people, this is on their mind right now, but what if they ask you for proof of funds? They're not. If you've asked the right quality questions, they've checked the box on you as you're being knowledgeable. They're not going to ask for proof of funds. You just got to ask good, high quality questions.
I like that a lot. Tell us a couple pointers about direct mail also. You said it's a secret weapon. Tell us, give us a couple things that we need to know before we send out our campaign. Yeah,
certainly we do both letters and postcards. We do both. I've done both. One of the key things that you obviously got to have a compelling mail piece. You got to have a headline on it, whether it's a letter or a postcard. It's got to grab their attention. I'll tell you, one of the advantages of the postcard over a letter is that with a letter, in order to read the letter, first they got to open that envelope. And I don't know about you, but I think most people sort their mail over a trash can. So that envelope has got to look like if it looks like a piece of business correspondence, it's dead. It's dead. It's got to be very personalized envelope to get them to open up that letter. And then even the letter has to have a headline on it to get them to want to read the letter. That's the letter format. Now, if you go the postcard route, the advantage of a postcard, there's no envelope to open. The message is right there. They can't miss it. And so put a very, very big, bold headline on that postcard so that it jumps out of them to get that message across to them.
Nice. So Lance, I know you're an expert in helping people get started in this industry. So I appreciate you laying all these steps out and going through the steps on direct mail and just the scripts with the brokers and things. But, on the syndication side, what's been the hardest part of the syndication business for you?
I would say getting started like anything else, learning all the regulations, learning all the rules, running the business model. What type of return am I going to offer my investors? And then that kind of backdoors me into what kind of properties do I need to find to be able to offer that return? And it's certainly not the deal flow side, because the deal flow is deal flow, whether it's small, mid-size, or large. There've been some little subtle twists, but it's basically deal flow. So for me, it's the subtleties around the securities laws and what form is this going to be? And is this going to be an equity fund or a lending fund? And just thinking through the model and realizing that, I've got to deliver this return to these investors. And so I got, think through all of the contingencies, all the things that might go wrong. What if Mr. Murphy shows up? How do we protect ourselves here? I would say, to me, that is, I don't call it difficult. It's just, it stretches your mind a different way, making sure you can be able to take care of your investors.
So how did you get past that at that time? How did you, have that confidence even then to say, okay, I know I'm checking all these boxes that I need to check?
I say it comes for me. It comes with confidence, having done some deals, the confidence in myself, which, I'm a different person than I was obviously when I got started, because I've done many, many deals. And I would say, it's an entrepreneurial confidence that comes with, I can handle pretty much what comes on, which was can contrast that with my first deal where our brain throws 1,000, what if this happened? What if this, it's this painting this whole horrid picture, which our brain loves to do. And that has obviously morphed with experience to, okay, well, we can pretty much handle whatever goes on. And having a very good team, I also add that, because, and I'll make this point for everyone, this is really not a solopreneur sport. I tell this, I don't want anybody thinking you're going to go out and you don't, do this in your underwear from your kitchen table. You're going to need to put together a team. And the more solid your team is, that also boosts your confidence. It also boosts the confidence of your investors. But you're going to be assembling a team from the get-go in order to be able to really take your business where I imagine everybody wants it to go. Because this is, I don't want you to think about a solopreneur. Build a business, a real business. Put a team around you. Find some really good, talented people that can help you attain your vision, and they help you get there faster.
Who's our most important team member?
Great question. I would say on my team, it's my attorney, my securities attorney. He's a securities attorney. He's my business attorney. And fortunately for me, he's also a very successful businessman, and he does his own syndications. Interestingly, matter of fact, I've got a podcast. I'm going to be interviewing him here coming up myself, Whitney, about what he's done. He did some fabulous things, building assisted living centers from a vision he had 5 years ago. And he just made it happen through syndication. He's now got 3 or 4 operating here in the state of Florida.
Nice.
So I would say that he is, a very unique gentleman. He's certainly my biggest team member.
So, Lance, what's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Great question. Showing up. I would, and what I mean by that, and this is what I tell my students, there's a saying, 80% of success is showing up, which means every morning you got to show up, you got to focus on your business, even when you don't feel like focusing on it, even when you're scared to death or that fear is playing with guys. The biggest obstacle is going to be fear. It's the junk in our heads, which is literally is junk. It's limiting beliefs that are bouncing around, and showing up just means, even if I'm feeling kind of fearful, I'm not feeling too confident, I got to show up, because I know if I show up, I'll figure it out. And I have found that to be true in everything I do, Whitney. If I've got a real problem, a real challenge ahead of us, then I got to address the challenge. And I find that the problem, the size of the problem created in my head, well, actuality it's much smaller once I confront it, and once I start talking about it, thinking about it, and addressing it and showing up. And so too many people, it's because of fear. Procrastination is taking them out of the game, or just downright lack of action is taking them out of the game, or they're doing what I call, they're collecting shiny rocks. This month it's real estate. Next month I'm gonna do internet marketing. Next month's gonna be network marketing. That is in response to fear by just, oh, that looks simpler. Oh, that looks simpler. And they end up collecting a lot of rocks, but not accomplishing anything financially.
You mentioned you were a W-2 employee for 20 plus years, moving from that to being an entrepreneur. Are there a couple things that you can speak to? We're obviously about out of time, but are there a couple things you can speak to just making that transaction to the listener who is contemplating that move right now from the W-2 employee to entrepreneur?
Great question. It's a big move. And number one, I would say this: do not leave your job into, say, real estate, for example. Do not leave your job into real estate or any other venture until the other venture is generating enough cash flow to sustain you. It's too much pressure, to burn the boats at the beach. Because if you have a cash flow coming in from your job and you just stop that thinking, okay, this real estate's going to take care of me, well, that's like holding a gun to your head. And so what I did, I did them both in parallel. You got to work, you got to show up, you got to be very disciplined on your time management. But I did both in parallel until my real estate was actually doing better than my job. So it became a very simple choice. Not that it was easy, because there's a second thing that's going to come up in your head, is that security. Oh my gosh, I'm leaving the security. And that's a big one, because we've been taught how these jobs provide security. So I was, someone told me this along the way, and it kind of helped me. I'll share it with your listeners, Whitney, is that imagine there's two doors. One door is marked freedom, and the second door is marked security. If you choose the door marked security, you're going to lose both. And I found that to be true. It is going to be a leap when you make that transition. You can move into it, make sure you have cash flow. But at some point, you're just going to have to take the leap, and you will never regret it. I never have. It's been however many years that's been. I left 2005. The freedom I have now, the options I have now, the opportunities I have now. I can't imagine if I'd been working for someone else, that same company during the recession, what might have happened to me. Because even during the recession, I had my own business. I could change, I could move, I could adjust, and that's how we got through the recession. And there's nothing like it. But that would be my suggestion in regard to that.
What's one way you've recently improved your syndication business that we can all apply to ours?
I would say this: I would beefing up my team. Go back to the team. I have now focused resources of my team, focused on deal flow. Number one, just like I was preaching, we focused on deal flow. I actually had a conference call with them today on what we're doing on deal flow. We're always trying new stuff from regards to our marketing. I would say that's number one, is deal flow. And then number two is back to getting the PPM right, getting the syndication part right. But it's at the end of the day, it's deal flow. And it's interesting, when I was talking to my attorney about putting this together, he said, okay, yeah, we can do this, no problem on the PPM, we can do this, but it's all going to come down to, you got to have deal flow. And actually that's part of our differentiation in PPM, how we're getting deal flow. And so whether it's small, mid-size, or large, to me, it's always going to come down to that, and then build a team that'll do it for you.
So how do you like to give back? How do you like to give back, whether it's the community or people in real estate or getting started, or what's your choice of giving back?
Teaching. Whether it's, whether it's me on stage at my seminars, and because I still do my own seminars, because I love it. And they got a lot to add, having done it for so long. And I know what people's fears are. I know what their questions are. And I love being able to see the gleam in their eye when they get it and it snaps. Even now, I've done stuff in the past with junior achievement, teaching high school kids entrepreneurship, because I think, like I said, we're not taught this stuff in school. I didn't stumble across it until I was in my late 30s. And I can't imagine if I had known this when I was 18 years old, or like that 12-year-old I was talking about, Dylan. And so I think that's my giving back, is teaching. And even if you get me in conversation with, I was talking to my lady barber yesterday, and I'm giving her advice, how to upsell on her, she'll be offering rate, shaves on her haircut. So I just love helping people get more out of their life, from what they're doing right now and helping them see a grander vision for their lives than they can see for themselves right now. That's what people did for me. And so that's why I still do the teaching personally, is because I can give that back.
Lance, you've been a great guest, and I really appreciate you being on the show and providing so many great tips and helping people get started and increase their deal flow. And tell the listeners how they can learn more about you and about your book and also your podcast.
Oh, sure, certainly, thank you. So I got a book. Whitney mentioned up front, How to Make Big Money in Small Apartments, #1 bestseller on Amazon, and we sell this every day on Amazon for $15. I want to give you the book for free. If you'll just pay the shipping and handling, I'll give you a website. It's $6 and change, shipping and handling. I'll send you this book, #1 bestseller, and a CD interview and other training materials to you for free. And there's a website you can go to. It's called freeapartmentsbook.com, freeapartmentsbook.com, and you'll see it. And for $6.77 shipping and handling, we'll send you the book. My podcast is called Greenlight REI. Greenlight REI. You can find us on the podcast, or you can go there. Actually, there's an archive page, greenlightreinvesting.com. Greenlightreinvesting.com has archives of all of our podcasts, including actually my attorney I was talking about. We did one with him. I got another one coming up. We're talking about raising private money, syndicating on there. So, but anyway, there's some resources. Hopefully that'll be of help to some of your listeners.
Great. Thank you so much, Lance. I hope the listeners will reach out to you and especially get the free book. That's a good opportunity and great resource. Not many resources are that inexpensive with that much content and value. So I appreciate you offering that to them. And I hope the listeners will go to lifebridgecapital.com and connect with me and schedule a call. And also go to our Facebook group where you can learn from experts like Lance and many other people in the industry and connect and network also. And we will talk to each of you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.